A woman's respect is not something you win once and keep forever. It is an ongoing verdict, an invisible trial in which every word, every hesitation, every compromise you make in the wrong direction can tilt the scales against you. And once her verdict turns against you, once she files you mentally under, not a man I can trust to lead or inspire, the shift is permanent. You can regain her attention, you can rekindle her comfort, but you will never fully restore the silent, electric respect that fuels genuine attraction. The Stoics understood this in a way that most men today cannot bear to face. Respect is the oxygen of desire. Lose it, and no amount of charm, wealth, or affection can breathe life back into what has already suffocated. The one mistake that kills her respect forever is not an act of betrayal, nor a public humiliation, nor even moral failure. It is the quiet surrender of your own authority over yourself. The moment you abandon your principles to appease her mood, the moment you trade your internal compass for her temporary approval, she will never see you the same way again. The Stoic truth is merciless. A man who governs himself lightly will be governed harshly by others. In love, that means she becomes the judge, the ruler, the unchallenged authority in your shared dynamic, and attraction cannot survive in that imbalance. This is not about being controlling. It is about never relinquishing the control you have over your own mind and actions. If you cannot be the steady center, the unmoved mover in the relationship, then to her, you are already replaceable. Today, we will dissect 5 escalating scenarios in which this fatal mistake plays out, exposing how a man's weakness turns admiration into contempt, and how, by embodying the Stoic way, you can flip each of these moments into an unshakable foundation of respect and attraction that endures. Imagine you have been seeing a woman for a few weeks. There is attraction, there is fun, but you are still in that delicate phase where both of you are subconsciously testing the other. One evening, she brings up a subject you care about deeply, a principle, a value, or a personal boundary you have made clear before. Maybe it is about how you spend your weekends, a project you are committed to, or a friend you remain loyal to despite her dislike. The conversation is casual at first, but then she makes a subtle challenge. Her tone shifts, her eyes sharpen, and she says something dismissive about that boundary. She might phrase it as a joke, or as a teasing suggestion to do something else instead. The test here is not about the surface issue. Evolutionarily, she is probing to see whether you will trade the stability of your convictions for the smoothness of temporary harmony. The hidden fear she is addressing, though she may not be conscious of it, is whether you can be relied upon to stand firm when life becomes inconvenient, when external pressures demand you bend. To her subconscious, a man who bends easily under low-stakes emotional pressure will snap entirely under the weight of true adversity. In her mind, if you cannot defend a small boundary in peacetime, how will you protect her in a storm? The scene may be simple: a couch, a laugh, a question asked too casually. But behind it is an ancient psychological algorithm running on autopilot, searching for evidence that you are either a rock she can anchor to or a reed that will sway with the slightest wind. The weak response here is the easy, socially lubricated one. He laughs it off, says, "Yeah, maybe you're right," and agrees to do it her way this time. On the surface, this feels harmless, an act of compromise, a sign of flexibility. But in her subconscious ledger, something darker is recorded. She sees that your principles are negotiable, not because the facts changed, not because you gained new understanding, but because you wanted to avoid that microsecond of tension. This communicates that your comfort in the moment is more important than your long-term integrity. It signals that your desire to keep her happy has already eclipsed your duty to keep yourself true. The frame collapses. The unspoken hierarchy between you shifts, with her rising subtly into the role of the one who can rewrite your rules with minimal effort. This is not about her being manipulative. It is about the natural feminine instinct to test for strength. A man who yields without a fight especially on something he previously declared important registers as unreliable in the moments that truly matter. This unreliability does not provoke a dramatic breakup. Instead, it plants the first seed of quiet contempt. She will not feel it fully yet, but her subconscious will file it away as evidence for the next time she wonders whether you are the kind of man she can fully trust with her heart and her future. The power response here is deceptively simple. When she challenges your boundary, you acknowledge her suggestion without flinching, without defensiveness, and then calmly restate your position. The key is in your delivery. No spike in your tone, no rush to justify, no performance of dominance. You simply stand where you stood before, as if her challenge was never a reason to move. You might smile and say, "I hear you, but this is important to me, so I'm going to stick with it." This small act subcommunicates volumes. It tells her you can absorb social pressure without collapsing. It tells her you are not bargaining for her affection by softening your edges. And in Stoic terms, it shows that your internal governance is immune to the sway of external moods. The ancient Stoics taught that a man must remain the same in the face of both praise and criticism. Here, you demonstrate that principle in microcosm. She may not articulate it, but she will feel it. This is a man who cannot be bribed with comfort or threatened with disapproval into betraying himself. The shift in her perception is immediate, even if subtle. There is a flicker in her eyes, a quick recalibration, as she updates her internal map of you. She had reached out to push against you, perhaps expecting the familiar soft give of most men, and instead found something immovable. This will create a small moment of disorientation, a pause in her mind where curiosity blooms. In the long term, this single exchange rewrites part of her attraction script. Now, you are not simply a man she enjoys. You are a man whose world she must enter on your terms. This does not make her submissive. It makes her engaged. You become a reference point, a gravitational center she orbits because your stability offers something rare in a chaotic world. The respect generated here is not loud or theatrical. It is quiet, enduring, and difficult to dislodge. In her subconscious, she begins to imagine scenarios far beyond this conversation scenarios where life becomes difficult, and she is with a man who will not abandon his post. That mental picture is the seed of deep, lasting desire. Picture this. You are out with her at a dinner party. The room is warm with laughter and the clinking of glasses, the low hum of conversation punctuated by bursts of louder chatter from across the table. She is seated beside you, her dress catching the light every time she shifts in her chair. The atmosphere is relaxed, but in these social arenas, subtle dynamics often emerge without warning. Midway through the evening, a topic comes up that draws her into playful banter with another man at the table, perhaps a friend of yours, perhaps a stranger. He tells a story. She laughs, he teases her, she teases back. On the surface, it is all harmless. But then she looks at you with a slightly raised eyebrow, an almost imperceptible smirk. In that glance is the hidden test. Will you feel compelled to compete for her attention, to show irritation, to mark your territory? Evolutionary psychology tells us that women often create these microtriangles to measure a man's emotional composure under perceived social threat. It is not that she wants another man. It is that she wants to feel the man she is with has no need to defend himself against every gust of wind. The fear beneath this test is primal. If a man collapses under imagined competition, he may lack the strength to lead under real pressure. This is the dinner table version of a stress test, quiet, subtle, but very revealing. The weak response here is almost always emotional leakage. The insecure man will change his tone, become sharper, more sarcastic, or try to outshine the other man in conversation. He might interrupt, redirect her attention toward himself, or withdraw into visible sulking. Each of these reactions carries the same subtext. I am unsettled because I fear losing you. That fear, once visible, repositions you in her mind from the unshakable man she chose to a man who feels threatened by shadows. The evolutionary chain reaction is brutal. Her subconscious detects that your sense of worth is fragile, dependent on her behavior, and thus easily undermined by external circumstances. This communicates low social value because truly high-value men operate from abundance. They do not cling to any single interaction as if it were life or death. By reacting possessively or defensively, you reveal that her attention is not a gift you enjoy, but a lifeline you desperately protect. This kills the mystique, erodes the thrill, and most importantly, signals to her subconscious that your self-governance is conditional on her conduct, not your own principles. The power response here is stillness, composure, and quiet self-assurance. You stay engaged in the conversation, either joining in naturally without trying to dominate, or simply enjoying the dynamic with relaxed ease. You do not attempt to pull her back because you do not need to. Instead, you remain rooted in your own presence, perhaps making a witty remark that fits the flow or smiling in a way that shows you are entirely unthreatened. This subcommunicates that your sense of value is self-contained, unshaken by passing interactions. In Stoic terms, you embody the principle that external events, especially trivial ones, are indifferent to your inner state unless you grant them power. By refusing to let the moment dictate your emotional temperature, you project an aura of abundance and quiet dominance. You do not need to compete for her attention because you are the gravitational center of the interaction, whether or not you are speaking. This behavior aligns perfectly with the Stoic ideal of the man whose mind is his fortress unassailable, immune to provocation unless it matters on the level of principle. The shift in her perception is twofold. Immediately, she registers that you are unshakable in social settings, that the mere presence of another man, playful or otherwise, does not rattle you. This both intrigues and reassures her. The intrigue comes from the subtle challenge you now pose. If her attention is not something you beg for, then it is something she must actively keep by her own desire. The reassurance comes from the deeper layer. Her subconscious sees that you will not crumble or lose composure under social pressure. In the long term, this creates an anchoring effect in her mind. You become the man whose presence allows her to relax in public, because you are never the one making the moment about yourself. She begins to associate you with a sense of safety not born from control, but from stability. Over time, this is intoxicating because it separates you from the majority of men who cannot endure even a hint of perceived competition without faltering. Respect deepens because your composure proves your independence, and independence is the soil in which lasting attraction grows. It is a quiet Sunday morning. You have your own plans for the day, perhaps a workout, a few hours dedicated to your personal projects, or simply the solitude you value as a reset. She wakes up beside you, stretches, and begins suggesting alternatives. Maybe she wants to spend the whole day together, go shopping, visit her friends, or binge watch a series you have no interest in. At first, her tone is light, but as you gently explain you already have your day mapped out, her suggestions turn into subtle pressure. She might pout, offer playful bribes, or feign disappointment. Beneath the surface, this is not about the specific activity. It is about whether she can shift your priorities when they conflict with hers. The hidden test here is simple yet powerful. Can you maintain your course when she applies emotional influence? Evolutionary psychology tells us that women instinctively seek to know whether a man's direction is internally driven or externally swayed. If your mission can be derailed by charm or guilt, she will question your ability to hold a steady course when external demands become much heavier than a weekend whim. The primal fear she is probing for is this: if you abandon your path for her comfort now, what will you abandon later under greater pressure? The Stoic truth here is as relevant as it was 2,000 years ago. If you cannot master your impulses to please others, you cannot be master of yourself. The weak response is the path of least resistance. The man smiles, shrugs, and says, "All right, let's just do what you want." In that moment, he trades the quiet power of his own schedule for the immediate relief of her approval. At first glance, this might seem harmless, even considerate. But her subconscious immediately logs the deeper message. Your time is not sacred to you. This collapse in frame communicates that your priorities are negotiable, and not because they have been replaced by something more important, but because they met with mild resistance from her. The chain reaction in her mind is silent but corrosive. If you do not protect your own time, how will you protect the time you might one day share as a family? If you are so easily swayed in personal matters, will you hold firm in professional, financial, or moral ones? The weak response here erodes respect, not because you spent the day together, but because you spent it in betrayal of your own word to yourself. Over time, this pattern reshapes her perception of you into someone who can be influenced into self-betrayal, a man who will eventually resent her for it, even as he keeps conceding. The power response is deliberate, calm, and resolute. You thank her for the suggestion with warmth, make it clear you value her company, and then state plainly that you will still follow through with your plans. You might say, "That does sound fun. Let's plan it for next weekend. Today, I've got something I need to take care of." Your tone is key. No irritation, no defensive justification, only a steady reaffirmation of your course. This communicates that your schedule is not arbitrary, that your commitments to yourself carry the same weight as commitments to others. In Stoic philosophy, a man's life is to be lived according to reason, not swayed by the emotional currents of the moment. By honoring your own plan without closing the door on hers, you demonstrate both steadfastness and foresight. She may feel a moment of resistance, but beneath it, her subconscious absorbs the more important message. You are a man whose direction is set internally, not blown about by the winds of desire or disapproval. This is frame control at its purest, not about denying her, but about refusing to deny yourself. The shift in her perception begins with a flicker of curiosity. Most men, in her experience, will gladly abandon their own plans for the validation of making her happy in the moment. By not doing so, you create a sense of rarity. She may test harder in the short term, even teasing you about your stubbornness, but over time, that very quality becomes a pillar of her respect. She begins to see you as a man whose life has an architecture, a man who is not merely reactive but intentional. This does not make you less attractive, it makes you magnetic. Now, when she is with you, she feels she is stepping into the current of a life already in motion, one she must match pace with rather than redirect at will. This subtly reverses the dynamic. Instead of you seeking her validation, she begins to seek your time with greater intention, knowing it is something you do not give lightly. In the long run, this deepens her trust, because she senses that if you will not abandon yourself for her, you also will not abandon her for others. It is late at night, and the two of you are in the middle of a heated disagreement. The air between you is taut, the kind of tension where every word carries more weight than it should. The disagreement might have started over something seemingly small, a miscommunication about plans. Eye comment taken the wrong way, but now it has spiraled into something deeper. Her voice rises, her tone sharpens, and she begins pushing emotional buttons you did not even know were there. She brings up something from the past, makes a cutting remark about your character, or questions your intentions. This is no longer about the surface issue. It has become a stress test of your emotional control. The hidden test here is primal. Will you remain composed under emotional provocation, or will you be pulled into the chaos? From an evolutionary perspective, a woman's subconscious is not testing to see if you will fight her. It is testing whether you can remain the stable center when emotions run high. This is directly tied to survival programming. In times of threat or chaos, can you be relied upon to lead with clarity? Or Will you dissolve into reactive aggression or retreat? The Stoic principle here is simple but uncompromising. You cannot control what others say or do, but you can always control your own reasoned response. The weak response is the emotional surrender, either through explosive anger or defensive collapse. The man takes the bait, raises his voice, interrupts, or begins attacking in kind. He abandons the calm authority of reason and becomes a mirror to her emotional escalation. This communicates, in the most visceral way possible, that his internal state is not his own, it is at the mercy of hers. Alternatively, he might withdraw into sulking silence, not the composed silence of a man choosing his moment, but the heavy, passive-aggressive quiet of a man who feels powerless. Both reactions feed the same subconscious conclusion. He is unable to remain steady in the storm. This shatters the perception of him as a protector, as a leader, as someone whose strength can be relied upon when real external crises emerge. In her mind, the man who loses composure over words in a heated room will likely crumble when the world outside brings genuine danger or high-stakes decisions. This is where respect does not simply erode, it fractures. The power response is rooted in deliberate self-command. You let her speak, you hear her words fully, and you respond slowly, with measured tone and deliberate choice of language. You do not match her volume or her emotional spikes. If she crosses into disrespect, you calmly draw a boundary not in retaliation, but as a statement of the standards you hold for any interaction with you. You might say, "I understand you're upset, and I want to address this, but I won't continue the conversation if it crosses into personal attacks." This is not about shaming her. It is about anchoring the interaction back into reason without allowing your own emotional state to be hijacked. In Stoic terms, you are applying the discipline of assent, refusing to accept as fact the impulse to react just because it feels justified in the moment. You become, in effect, the unmoved center around which the storm swirls but cannot shake. This demonstrates that your authority over yourself is absolute, and that no external force, not even someone you care for deeply, can take that from you. The shift in her perception is both immediate and lasting. In the moment, she may be frustrated that you are not reacting the way she expected. If she was subconsciously pulling you into escalation, your refusal to engage breaks the pattern. This can cause her to recalibrate, realizing that her emotional surges will not control you. Over time, this builds a deeper layer of trust. She begins to see you as a man whose word and action are filtered through deliberate thought, not hijacked by passing emotions. This makes you a rare presence in her life, not because you never feel anger or frustration, but because you master those feelings rather than being mastered by them. That mastery becomes magnetic because it signals that you can handle volatility without collapsing, and that you can be relied upon in situations far more intense than a late-night argument. Respect deepens not through the absence of conflict, but through the way you handle it without sacrificing your own integrity. It is a moment of decision. You and she are discussing a significant choice, perhaps moving to a new city, committing to a shared investment, or deciding how to handle a family conflict. The stakes are higher than the casual scenarios before, and both of you have opinions. She states her preference clearly, perhaps even persuasively, outlining why she believes her option is the best. You listen, weigh her words, and realize that your assessment points in a different direction. This is the type of moment that reveals whether a man's leadership is situational or foundational. The hidden test here is sharper than the others because it directly challenges the axis of authority in the relationship. From an evolutionary lens, women have always sought men capable of decisive, informed leadership, men who can gather information, evaluate it without bias, and choose a course even in the face of disagreement. The fear beneath this is simple. If he will abdicate decision-making when it matters most, then in times of crisis, she will be forced to lead alone, and the burden of protection and provision will fall solely on her. In Stoic thought, This is a moment to act in accordance with reasoned judgment, regardless of external pressure, even from those you love most. The weak response is surrender disguised as compromise. He nods, says, "Okay, if that's what you want," and sets aside his own conclusion entirely, not because her argument truly changed his mind, but because he wishes to avoid the discomfort of standing firm in disagreement. This moment is catastrophic for respect. To her, it is not just that he yielded, it is that he yielded without conviction. She sees that his leadership is negotiable, dependent on the ease of the moment rather than the weight of the decision. This triggers a subconscious reclassification. He is not the final pillar in their shared decision-making process, but merely another voice that can be overruled by emotional pressure. The chain reaction is damaging in ways that extend beyond this one choice. Every future decision will carry the ghost of this surrender, reminding her that when the stakes rise, his commitment to his own reason falters. Over time, this erodes the foundation of trust, because she begins to anticipate that in the face of external threats or complex challenges, she will have to take the reins. The power response is deliberate and unwavering. You listen fully, you acknowledge the validity of her points, and then you state your decision with clarity and composure. You might say, "I understand why you see it that way, and I respect your perspective. But based on what I know, I believe this is the right direction, and that's what I'm going with." There is no need to overpower her with force or drown her in arguments. You simply stand by the judgment you have formed through your own reasoning. This is not authoritarianism. It is the embodiment of the Stoic principle that action must align with reason, not with fear of disagreement. By maintaining this posture, you demonstrate that you value her input without surrendering the responsibility that comes with leadership. Your frame is reinforced because you are not seeking her validation for your choice. You are acting as the man who will bear the responsibility for the outcome. This is quiet dominance at its most potent. The shift in her perception is profound. In the immediate moment, she may push back, test harder, or even express frustration that you did not align with her view. But beneath that, something deeper takes root, a renewed recognition that you are capable of leading in moments that matter. This recognition is not always accompanied by overt praise. Often, it settles into the subconscious as a steadying presence she feels when she is with you. Over time, this strengthens the core of her respect, because you have shown that you will not abandon your reason simply to maintain harmony. You have proven that your leadership is not situational, but structural, an inherent part of who you are. This becomes magnetic, because it reassures her primal need for a partner who can stand firm when the ground beneath you both shifts. In the long arc of the relationship, this quality is what transforms fleeting attraction into enduring loyalty. She knows you are a man who will carry the weight when it must be carried, and that knowledge binds her to you in a way that cannot be replicated by charm or romance alone. The practical arsenal of the Stoic man in these 5 scenarios is not a collection of flashy tricks or manipulative tactics. It is a disciplined practice of self-governance that radiates into every interaction. In the first scenario, when your boundary is tested, the power response is the calm, unflinching restatement of your position, showing that your principles are not negotiable under emotional pressure. In the second, when playful social competition emerges, the power response is relaxed composure, demonstrating that your value is not threatened by passing attention shifts. In the third, when your schedule meets her desires, the power response is honoring your commitments to yourself while leaving the door open for shared experiences, later proving that your direction is set from within. In the fourth, when the heat of an argument rises, the power response is emotional control, remaining the steady center, refusing to be pulled into reactive chaos. In the fifth, when a high-stakes decision must be made, the power response is measured leadership, listening fully, acknowledging her input, and still making the call your reason dictates. All 5 have the same root. You never relinquish the authority over your own mind and actions. You operate from a code, not from the fluctuations of her mood or your fear of losing her approval. You understand, as the Stoics did, that external events are beyond your control, but your interpretation and response are yours alone to govern. The consistency of this stance builds a gravitational pull around you. She may not always agree with you. She may test, challenge, or even push against you. But she will respect you, and that respect will feed her attraction far more than any attempt to please her ever could. The conclusion is this: the one mistake that will make her lose all respect for you forever is abandoning yourself to please her in the moment. It is the quiet self-betrayal, the surrender of your own compass, that does the deepest damage. You may think you are buying peace, but you are selling the very thing she most needs from you: your unwavering steadiness. The Stoics understood that a man who cannot lead himself cannot lead others. In love, that truth is magnified. She may enjoy your charm, your affection, your shared history, but if she cannot feel anchored to your strength, the bond will wither. Respect is the foundation. Without it, desire collapses. So take these scenarios as training grounds. The next time she tests your boundary, hold it with quiet certainty. When she creates subtle competition, remain relaxed and unthreatened. When she asks you to abandon your plans, honor your commitments to yourself. When conflict rises, control your emotions instead of letting them control you. When a decision must be made, make it with the clarity of reason, not the fear of disagreement. These are not just responses, they are the embodiment of a man living by a code. And if you truly want to take this further, understand that the respect you build in her is only as strong as the respect you build in yourself. Every day you betray your own standards, even in small ways, you weaken that core. Every day you honor them, you reinforce the presence that makes you unshakable in her eyes. This is the Stoic way, not for show, not for seduction, but because a man without self-command is already at the mercy of everyone else. Master yourself, and you master the frame of every relationship you enter. Fail at this, and no amount of words will restore what has been lost. Now, carry this into the next step. Because if you think holding her respect is enough, you're wrong. The next truth will show you how to turn that respect into something far more dangerous, her obsession. And once you learn to command that, you'll never play the same game again. Watch closely.